Have you ever looked at someone you love and thought, we've made it through the worst? That was me. I thought we were stronger than ever, sharing quiet mornings, planning weekend getaways, laughing like we used to. But behind her smile, behind those moments of happiness, she was hiding a secret. And when I found out, it wasn't just the betrayal that crushed me. It was how well she had fooled me into thinking we were okay. To anyone watching, we were the picture of a happy couple, like the storms in our marriage had passed. But the thing about storms is that sometimes they leave behind cracks you can't see. And I didn't realize how deep those cracks were until the truth came crashing in. I had convinced myself we were better. I mean, we weren't perfect, but who is? There was a comfort in the routine. Morning kisses, dinner conversations, even her warm laughter filling the house. These moments felt so real. Then came the conversation that changed everything. A close friend of mine, someone I trust with my life, asked if I had noticed anything off about my wife. I brushed him off, laughed it away, and said, "We're doing great." But then he looked me dead in the eye and said, "I saw her. She was with someone else." At first, I didn't believe him. I mean, why would I? We had worked so hard to rebuild what we had. But the look on his face, it was the kind of look that comes from knowing something you wish you didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every moment over the past few months. Pieces started falling into place, painting a picture I didn't want to see. I told myself I'd confront her in the morning and demand answers. But I wasn't ready for what I'd find when I did. The next morning, after we had breakfast and the kids were dropped off at school, I confronted her. I told her what I had heard and asked if it was true. She looked me in the eye and denied it, straight-faced, without even flinching. "That's ridiculous," she said, brushing it off like it was a joke. I didn't press too hard that morning. I just said, "If there's something you need to tell me, now's the time." Days passed, and I noticed she became more guarded. She kept her phone closer, taking it with her even when she went to the bathroom. The signs were adding up, and the doubt in my mind grew louder. A week later, I decided to try again. This time, I was direct. "I know something's going on," I told her. "I need the truth." That's when the walls came down. At first, she still denied it, saying I was being paranoid. But as I stayed calm, as I refused to let her deflections distract me, she broke. She admitted she had been seeing someone, a coworker. I couldn't speak for a moment. She promised it wasn't serious, and said she'd end it immediately. She claimed it was a mistake, one that wouldn't happen again. I wanted to believe her. As much as it hurt, I loved her. I wanted our family to stay intact. So I agreed to work on it, but only if she promised to cut ties with him. We went to counseling. I poured my heart out in those sessions, talking about how betrayed I felt, but also about how much I still cared for her. I thought we were making progress. Outside of therapy, we spent more time together, date nights, movie marathons, and even weekend getaways. She seemed committed. She would hold my hand, look me in the eyes, and say she was sorry for what she did. For a while, it felt like we were healing. The laughter came back. The late-night talks came back. I let myself believe that we had turned a corner, that we were stronger now, because we had faced the storm together. But as it turned out, I was the only one who had moved on. She hadn't let go of him, not really. Looking back, those moments of hope were the cruelest part of it all. They made what came next hurt even more. It happened on a quiet Sunday evening. She had stepped outside to water the garden, her phone left on the kitchen counter. I was grabbing a drink when it buzzed, lighting up with a notification. The name on the screen caught my attention. Work consultant. Curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced at the preview. It read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe." My breath caught in my throat. The word babe echoed in my mind. I glanced toward the window to make sure she was still outside as I picked up the phone. Unlocking it was easy. She had never bothered to change her password. What I found confirmed my worst fears. The messages were filled with endearments, plans, and details of a life she was living behind my back. She wasn't just texting him. She was talking about moments they'd shared, moments I was meant to believe were just part of her busy work schedule. She was supposed to cut all communication with this guy, and she's sworn to do that. I guess she only changed his name on her phone. Anger came first, sharp and fiery. I wanted to storm into the garden, shove the phone in her face, and demand answers. How could she? After everything, how could she still betray me like this? But then came the sadness, heavy and suffocating. I tried so hard to make things work, to forgive her and move on for the sake of our marriage. I loved her, or at least the version of her I thought I knew. The realization that she didn't respect me enough to end things with him crushed me. Finally, there was betrayal. It wasn't just the affair. It was the lies, the deceit, the charade of a happy marriage we had been playing for months. I felt like a fool for believing her, for trusting her promises. As I stood there, staring at her phone, I realized something important. Reacting in anger wouldn't change anything. Confronting her might give me temporary satisfaction, but it wouldn't fix the deeper issue. She had already shown me who she truly was. It was up to me to decide what to do with that knowledge. At that moment, I made a choice. Instead of confronting her, I would take a different path. I would prepare for the inevitable fallout. She didn't need to know that I had discovered her secret. Not yet. My silence would be my advantage. I put the phone back on the kitchen counter exactly as I had found it and sat down. And at that moment, I felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't a fight I needed to have anymore. The marriage was over in my heart, even if it hadn't ended on paper. I met with a divorce lawyer 3 times, each meeting focused on protecting what mattered most, my finances and my kids. We started with the house. The lawyer explained how to secure it in the divorce proceedings, ensuring my wife couldn't claim full ownership. Next, we discussed custody. My kids meant everything to me. I documented everything. The time I spent with them, their routines, and how I handled their needs. My lawyer emphasized the importance of providing stability, and I was determined to provide it. Lastly, I transferred the majority of our savings into an account she couldn't access. It wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. I needed to ensure there was something left for the life I'd rebuild after this. At home, I stayed calm, but I watched her closely. One evening, I saw her smiling at her phone. I didn't ask who it was. Instead, I made a mental note and moved on. I stopped trying to connect with her emotionally. The little things that used to bother me, her business dinners or late-night phone calls, didn't matter anymore. I observed everything, but kept my face neutral. She never asked why I seemed distant, and I didn't explain. I told myself this wasn't about punishing her. It was about protecting myself. Every interaction was measured and controlled. I'd already started saying goodbye in my head. I worked on the details, updated my will to remove her as a beneficiary, and transferred our shared assets into accounts she couldn't touch. I also started selling off a few joint investments, ensuring the funds went directly into my account. I planned for life after the divorce, where I'd live, how I'd manage financially, and what steps I'd need to take to rebuild. Every move was calculated, leaving no room for her to gain the upper hand. On the day I ended things, dinner that evening was quiet as usual. I had spent the day thinking about how to approach this moment. The meal was simple: grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, and a side of steamed vegetables. She had set the table nicely, as she always did, her smile warm and familiar. To anyone watching, we might have looked like a happy couple sharing a peaceful evening. But beneath the surface, I carried the weight of everything I knew. As we ate, I kept my tone casual, asking her about her day and listening to her talk about a meeting she had at work. I didn't interrupt her. I let her speak, pretending to hang on to every word. But my mind wasn't in that conversation. It was focused on what I was about to say. When she finished her story and there was a natural pause in the conversation, I placed my fork down carefully, looked her in the eye, and said, "We need to finalize the divorce by Friday." I said it calmly, almost casually. as if I were discussing our grocery list or weekend plans. Her reaction was immediate and intense. Her smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure confusion. She blinked a few times, as though she hadn't heard me correctly. What are you talking about?" she stammered, her voice shaky. I leaned back slightly in my chair, maintaining my composure. "I've been thinking about this for a while," I said. "It's clear that we've been living a lie, and I think it's time we end it." She froze, her fork hovering midair. Her mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came out. Finally, she managed to say, "Why are you saying this? Where is this coming from? Everything has been fine, hasn't it?" I almost laughed at her attempt to act clueless, but I kept my expression neutral. "Fine?" I repeated. "Do you really believe that?" Her face turned pale, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. She was trying to figure out what I knew and how much I had uncovered. She started to deny it. "I don't understand. What's wrong? Why are you doing this?" I shook my head. "You do understand," I replied, my voice steady. "I know you've still been in contact with him. I saw the messages." Her eyes widened, and she immediately switched tactics. "It's not what you think," she said quickly, her tone pleading now. I don't even talk to him anymore. Those messages were old." "Don't lie to me," I interrupted, my voice sharper now, but still controlled. "I gave you a chance to end it months ago. I warned you. You told me you did, and I believed you. But you didn't stop, did you?" She was silent, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to argue, but couldn't find the words. I could see the panic setting in. "I've been preparing for this," I continued. "While you were pretending everything was fine, I was making sure I'd be ready when the truth came out. The assets are already being handled, and the papers are ready. You have until Friday to sign them." I could see it in her eyes the moment I said the word divorce. Panic, regret, fear. Not because she cared about losing me, but because her safety net, the life I provided, was slipping away. I didn't say much after dropping the news. I gave her time to let it sink in. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she reached across the table, her voice desperate. "Please, we can fix this. I'll end it for real this time. I'll do anything. Don't do this, please." I pulled my hand back, refusing to let her touch me. "You already made your choice," I said firmly. "This isn't something I can forgive." She broke down then, sobbing into her hands, but I didn't feel sympathy. I didn't feel anger anymore either. Just clarity. This was the right thing to do for me, for my peace, and for the life I wanted to rebuild. The dinner sat untouched between us, as the weight of my words filled the room. I stayed calm, unshaken, knowing that this was the beginning of the end for us. That night I stayed in the guest room, and she stayed in ours. I could hear the faint murmurs of her voice through the thin walls. She was on the phone. I knew exactly who she was calling. Her lover. I imagined the desperation in her tone, though I couldn't make out the words. She probably expected him to reassure her, to tell her they'd figure it out together. Maybe she even hoped he'd say he loved her and was ready to step up. But I knew better. I knew what kind of man he was because I'd done my homework. Months ago, when I first learned about the affair, I made it my mission to understand who this guy was. He wasn't the type to commit. He was the type to chase a thrill, to take what he wanted without offering anything in return. And the second things got messy or serious, he'd vanish. The next morning, I caught her sitting on the edge of our bed, staring blankly at her phone. Her usual morning routine, getting dressed, checking her makeup, pretending everything was fine, was missing. Instead, she looked like someone whose world was crashing down. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. I knew exactly what happened. He hadn't answered her calls last night, had he? Maybe he gave her some excuse about being busy. Or maybe he ignored her altogether. And now, she was realizing that the man she risked her marriage for wasn't coming to her rescue. Later that day, as I packed a few things to move into a short-term rental, I overheard her on the phone again. This time, her voice was louder, angrier. "Why won't you just call me back?" she snapped, her frustration boiling over. I could tell she was unraveling. She thought she had him in her corner, but now he was nowhere to be found. "Why are you doing this?" she screamed at me that Friday evening. "Why are you leaving me?" I stayed calm. I looked her in the eye and said, "You made your choice." And so did he. At that moment, I saw something in her face I hadn't seen in years. Vulnerability. Not the kind that draws people closer, but the kind that comes from realizing you've burned every bridge behind you, and there's no one left on the other side. She was stranded emotionally and financially by the very person she thought would save her. It wasn't just satisfying, it was validating. I'd spent months carrying the weight of her betrayal, doubting myself, wondering if I'd done something wrong. But seeing her crumble under the truth, it was a reminder that I was right to trust my instincts and plan my exit. She thought she was playing a game she could win. She thought I'd be too weak to leave, and her lover would be her backup plan. But she underestimated me. And him. Every sleepless night, every tense moment of silence in the house, and every forced smile when the kids were around, it all led to this point. I wasn't free yet, but I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I was holding on to the hope that when everything was finalized, I'd have the fresh start I deserved. The divorce wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about securing what mattered most to me. I'd done everything I could to protect my future, transferring assets, preparing legal documents, and ensuring I was ready for any surprises. But my biggest focus was the kids. They were my world, and I couldn't bear the thought of them being caught in the chaos or being raised in an environment where dishonesty and betrayal had become normal. I knew the road ahead wasn't guaranteed. There was always the chance that things wouldn't go as planned, that she might try to turn things against me or fight harder than I expected. But I also knew I had done everything within my power to prepare for this moment. The lawyers assured me I was in a strong position, and I trusted that the truth would eventually speak for itself. What I looked forward to the most was the chance to rebuild, to start fresh, to create a home where the kids could feel safe and loved without the shadow of tension hanging over us. I imagined a life where I didn't have to pretend everything was okay. A life where I could wake up in the morning and not feel the sting of betrayal lingering in the back of my mind. I wasn't naive. I knew it would be a long process. Divorce wasn't just paperwork. It was the end of a chapter that had shaped so much of my life. But I was ready to close that chapter and move forward, one step at a time. If everything went in my favor, if the court saw through the lies and recognized what I had been fighting for, I could finally start over with peace of mind. I could focus on being the father my kids needed and the person I wanted to be, free from the weight of a broken marriage.